Harbaugh is building a bully. You've probably heard that as well. But look at what he did in San Francisco. He came in, it was a 6-win team under Mike Singletary. The next year, they're in the NFC Championship game. The next year, they're in the Super Bowl. Lost both those games, but the guy builds a program. The team's on the rise. They're going to be able to run the football. They're able to beach in the trenches. They're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs team they went toe-to-toe with last year.
And they also have to fight history, too, which is the Chargers are going to charge her. Every year we hear about Justin Herbert. This is, he's got exceptional talent. We need to see it. If we're going to talk about these other quarterbacks not getting done, we also have to look at Justin Herbert.
So I started making Chargers content back in 2021, and the reason for that is because of Justin Herbert. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks I've ever seen, and he sparked my interest as someone who was never really a big football guy. Just the way he throws the football, his leadership, his athleticism, his skill set. He's just a 5-star quarterback, also very mobile. But he hasn't won anything. Herbert hasn't even won a single playoff game. He's been around the league for years now, guys. The reason for that is the ownership and the management of the Chargers. They haven't given him a fair chance. And the thing about a winning culture, it's not about free agency. The Chargers, they go out there, they get a bunch of big names, of course, years ago, and they sucked. But now they bring in Jim Harbaugh. They're building this from the trenches, from the ground up. They've got a lot of young talent. And that's exactly how it's going to be done. The Chiefs didn't just go out there and buy their team. They developed them. And that's what the Chargers are doing. And last season, they went toe-to-toe. Literally, it came down to the wire. The Chargers also won 11 games. They made the playoffs. And as we know, they fell short to the Texans. But the thing, and it was said at the beginning of this video, is when Harbaugh was with the Niners, he took over a 6-win team. And then they go to the NFC Championship. They go to the Super Bowl. And although they didn't end up winning a Super Bowl, it's about the process. And the Chargers are on that right now. I didn't think they'd win 11 games last year. I didn't think the roster was anywhere close to being that good. But they overachieved. And I think the Chargers are going to overachieve this season. Nobody besides Charger fans thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think that's exactly why they will. When I think of the top teams in the AFC, it's the Bills. It's the Chiefs. It's the Ravens. And I'll put the Chargers up there. The Texans, obviously, you have to put them in there because they did beat us. All those teams have what in common? They've got a very good high-level quarterback, and they've got a culture around them. And the Chargers are no exception. They are going the next couple of seasons to win a lot of meaningful football games. And another thing as well is that the Chargers didn't have a lot of skilled players that were able to go out there and to make an impact. Ladd McConkey makes it seem like the Chargers offense is pretty good, but they couldn't run the ball. The interior of the offensive line sucked. And again, Quentin Johnson caught some touchdowns, but he didn't separate well. He dealt with a lot of drops. Will Disley had a career year receiving, but wasn't nearly good enough. So you go out there, you get Tyler Conklin. You draft Kendrick Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris. You draft Aronde Gadsden. And also, you draft Amari and Hampton. You bring in Najee Harris in free agency. So it's a mix of developmental guys, but also stable veterans. And I love the fact that the Chargers used a first-round pick on a running back because all offseason, we spoke about how the Chargers need a high-level running back. And I'm talking about like Amari Hampton is literally the perfect player because he's a 3-down back that can block, that can catch the ball, and he's a dynamic player. But also complementing him with Najee Harris, very similar to the Detroit Lions, who a couple of years ago, they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, and they brought in David Montgomery in free agency. You can't just have one running back. It's 2025. That doesn't work. You need two guys that are interchangeable, that can carry the ball and that can receive and that can catch it and that can block. And that's what the Chargers have. This is a Super Bowl level roster. Obviously, it's the offseason. They haven't played. They haven't won anything, so nobody's going to believe me. But that's why I make these videos. You know how many times, like the Commanders, you guys aren't going to know this because you only watch my Charger videos, but on one of my other channels where I talk about the Commanders, I said in the offseason that this is the Texans like a year ago where they sucked. They got C.J. Stroud, and all of a sudden, here we go, right? They're going to compete in the AFC. That's exactly what happened. Now, Jaden Daniels, I was very high on, and the Commanders had an amazing offseason. They had a lot of money, and they used it, and they built around their guy. They also went out, of course, and they brought in one of his former coaches. So, like, they had a lot of, like, experience and with the relationship and things like that, and Cliff Kingsbury. So, every piece went into play, and it ended up creating, obviously, like, dynasty is not the right way to phrase it because that's kind of crazy, but just how you build a team. I mean, every good team in the NFL has a coach, and then they have their QB, and more often than not, it's a defensive-minded coach with a young, promising quarterback. That's exactly what the Chargers have: is Harbaugh and Herbert, and then Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels and like Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, right? And Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's offensive, so that's not the best example, but like Andy Reid and Mahomes. But just that's what the Chargers have now. And the fact that in year one they won 11 games, they went to the playoffs, and it's only going to go up from here. I mean, that's pretty impressive. It's very, very impressive too. And you also have to give a lot of credit to Jim Hortez because we're praising Harbaugh, but Hortez is the one that constructed this roster. In year one, the Chargers gave up the fewest points in the NFL. In year one, of course, they built an offense that it might not have been perfect, but it did put up points and it got them to the playoffs. You're not making the playoffs unless you could score points too. And Justin Herbert had his best season, at least his most efficient season. He didn't turn the ball over. And then the Chargers' issues came into play when it mattered most. So that's the thing, is nobody expected the Chargers to really make a lot of noise in the playoffs. They were favorited despite being on the road in that wild card game. But it's the same thing with the Broncos, is that year one of Bo Nix, and of course you pair also the next year of course, look at Sean Payton. Both those teams overachieved, and they've gotten a lot better. The Chiefs have actually gotten worse, and they just have a lot of wear and tear on them from these deep playoff runs. So not only are the Chargers probably like just as good as the Chiefs, maybe like a little bit worse, but also the Chargers, they haven't been going deep into the playoffs, obviously, so they're going to be a lot fresher, and they're going to bring it. And everyone wants to talk about Bo Nix, this and that, but the Chargers, I mean, they've got Justin Herbert, who doesn't have any fear whatsoever. He's not afraid of the moment, too. And everyone talks about how Herbert hasn't won anything and he's overrated, but who has Justin Herbert been throwing to? I mean, J.K. Dobbins, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, that was great and all, but it never was fully healthy. It was never out there, and the defense blew it anyway. So you need a complete team. Like, there's no quarterback in the NFL that's winning that doesn't have talent around him. Jalen Hurts had the most talent around him. Patrick Mahomes had a lot of good players. Lamar Jackson certainly had a very good team. And then, Jaden Daniels, like I just said, had a very good team around him. So Justin Herbert has never had that. He's never had every single season, but this is about just the culture and the dynamic of the team, and it's going to be a lot of fun. In week one, we're going to get a very good look at who the Chargers really are, because they're taking on the Chiefs, of course, in Brazil. And then 10 days after that, they're going to be going to Las Vegas and taking on the new-look Raiders. And then the Denver Broncos at home, of course, the following Sunday. So it is going to be like technically a short week, but actually, Monday to Sunday. And then the Giants, Commanders, Dolphins, Colts, Vikings. It's a pretty tough schedule, I'm not going to lie. I do think that's what the Chargers needed, because they did beat up on a lot of bad teams last year, and then they went against the Texans, who were not a bad team. Texans are a very good team. So I kind of like this. There's a lot of playoff teams, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 teams that the Chargers are facing. Of course, like they play the Chiefs twice and they play the Broncos twice. So, but 9 of these games are against playoff teams, and that's not counting the Colts and the Cowboys, who I don't think are that far off. The majority of these games are going to be competitive, and that's what the Chargers need. Like, I'm actually pretty excited. I'd rather have a tough schedule than an easy schedule, because then by the time you get to the playoffs, if you played all bum teams, well, you're not prepared.